Prince Andrew seems to be a lightning rod for controversy. The question becomes, what has happened now? Stay tuned because all attention is back on Prince Andrew over offensive comments. Prince Andrew's disturbing behavior seems to have no limit.
Some secrets refuse to stay buried. No matter how deep you hide them, no matter how many years pass, truth has a way of clawing back to the surface. Behind the towering gates of Buckingham Palace, something had been hidden for decades, something that would soon send shockwaves through the royal family and captivate the entire world. When an unmarked envelope arrived one quiet morning, no one could have predicted the chaos it would unleash. Inside was evidence of a past carefully erased, a connection deliberately forgotten, and a daughter who had spent her entire life searching for answers no one wanted to give. Then came the moment everything changed. The DNA test confirmed what many had suspected, but few dared to say out loud. Stay with us as we uncover the full story behind Prince Andrew's secret and the final statement that left the world speechless. The whisper that wouldn't fade. It started as nothing more than a rumor, soft and easy to dismiss. The kind of gossip that floats through corridors when everyone else has gone home. Inside Buckingham Palace, where tradition runs deeper than blood and secrets are currency, someone mentioned a name that hadn't been spoken in years. They claimed there was another child, not born from scandal plastered across tabloids, but tied directly to royal blood itself. At first, no one took it seriously. Palace staff had heard it all before. Every few months, some magazine would print a sensational story about hidden affairs or forgotten heirs. The royal press office had become experts at putting out fires before they spread. But this time felt different. The rumor didn't fade. It kept circulating through private conversations, charity events, and phone calls that ended abruptly when questions got too specific. Then the envelope arrived. Delivered by hand on a rainy Tuesday. No return address, no official markings. Just a simple brown package addressed to the private office. Inside was an old photograph showing a young woman with piercing blue eyes, a lock of light brown hair tied with a ribbon, and a single sheet of paper bearing 7 words that changed everything. You know who I am. DNA will prove it. That moment shattered the calm. The note passed quickly from one official to another until it landed on the desk of the private secretary. Within hours, urgent meetings filled secret rooms. Advisors argued whether to respond or ignore it completely. But deep down, everyone understood this wasn't something they could simply sweep away. The investigation began quietly. The courier had vanished without a trace. Security experts examined the photograph and confirmed it wasn't digitally altered. The lock of hair was tested for authenticity. Every answer led to more questions. Who was this woman? How old was she? And most troubling of all, what if she really did share blood with the Duke of York? As journalists noticed unusual activity around the palace, small stories began appearing. First, a whisper in a gossip column, then a tweet from someone who watches the royals closely. Within days, every major newsroom in London was chasing the same angle. Something was happening behind those walls, something the family desperately wanted to keep contained. Prince Andrew himself reportedly reacted with shock. "This is ridiculous," he told one aide, walking circles in his private quarters. "Someone's trying to cause trouble." Yet those closest to him noticed something else beneath his words. A tremor of concern, as if some long-buried memory was beginning to resurface. Outside, what started as a whisper had grown into something impossible to ignore. The world was asking questions the palace could no longer dodge. And somewhere in the shadows of that gathering storm, the truth waited patiently, ready to change everything. A love story erased by time. Before the headlines and the controversy, there was a simpler story. A story about youth, brief affection, and decisions made when duty weighs heavier than desire. When reporters started digging into Prince Andrew's history, Piecing together fragments from old pictures and half-remembered conversations, they discovered a name almost lost to time. It belonged to a woman who was never supposed to stand beside a prince. In the early 1980s, when the Duke of York served as a naval officer,
Andrew settled on joining the Royal Navy, where he served as an officer and pilot for a number of years. In the early 1980s, he was stationed on the HMS Invincible. From there, he flew a variety of missions.
His training took him across the Mediterranean. Those who served with him remember it as a period of unusual freedom, when the young prince felt more like a sailor than royalty, joking with crewmen and escaping the heavy expectations of palace life. During those sun-soaked months in Gibraltar, he met her, a local woman with quiet grace and a smile that could disarm even the most guarded hearts. She wasn't from nobility or high society. She worked part-time at a small cafe near the naval port, serving tea and casual conversation to passing officers. Their first encounter happened by chance. He'd left behind a journal on the counter, and she returned it with a warm laugh. From that moment, they became close, slipping away during off-duty hours for conversations that stretched long into the night. Friends from those days still recall how different he seemed around her. Lighter, freer, more himself. She made him laugh like no one else could, one naval companion told a reporter years later. It wasn't about titles or what was expected. It was just two people trying to feel normal. But in their world, normal was never an option. Handwritten letters traveled between them when his ship moved to another port. Promises were made quietly, without certainty. But duty called, and royal obligations are never forgiving. Within months, distance turned into silence. The letters stopped coming. The woman, heartbroken and uncertain, disappeared from view soon after. Those who knew her said she moved to southern France, taking with her only memories. And as would later be revealed, something far more permanent. Years rolled forward. The royal world moved on, wrapped in ceremony and fresh scandals. The woman lived quietly, raising a daughter who inherited her eyes and, unknowingly, her unanswered questions. She told close friends that her child's father had once worn a uniform, that he was kind and important, but could never be part of their lives. To protect her daughter, she buried the truth beneath layers of silence. But secrets have their own timeline. Decades later, that same daughter would uncover pieces of the past, a photograph hidden in a drawer, faded letters signed with initials she couldn't place, and a story that felt too strange to be coincidence. With time and the courage that comes with adulthood, she began to wonder if her blood carried traces of royalty. What began as a fleeting love story, forgotten by history, was about to resurface as a revelation powerful enough to shake a kingdom. The past hadn't disappeared. It had simply been waiting for the right moment to return. When science spoke the truth. When the moment finally came, it arrived not with drama, but with quiet certainty that no one could argue against. The DNA test of the one piece of evidence the palace hoped would never see daylight was complete. The results, sealed in an unmarked envelope, were delivered to a private meeting held deep within palace walls. Only 5 people sat in that room when it was opened: the royal legal advisor, 2 senior aides, a laboratory representative, and Prince Andrew himself. The moment the paper unfolded, everything shifted. There it was, printed in plain black text, 99.97% match. No speculation, no rumor, no amount of denial could erase what science had proven. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The room held only the faint ticking of a clock above the fireplace. Prince Andrew stared at the document as if the words were written in a language he couldn't understand. His face was drained of all colors. The legal advisor, a man famous for staying composed, exhaled slowly and closed his eyes. "It's conclusive," he said quietly. Word spread quickly through the upper floors of the palace. Staff members who had whispered theories now moved in heavy silence. The few who knew the truth were sworn to absolute secrecy, yet somehow, pieces of information began leaking. Within 24 hours, hints reached journalists. A reliable insider suggested the palace was verifying sensitive biological evidence. By morning, television networks were running headlines. Royal DNA test under review. Outside the palace gates, cameras multiplied. Reporters shouted questions into the void. Online, speculation exploded. Some claimed the alleged daughter was demanding formal recognition. Others insisted a press conference was coming at any moment. The palace, caught between fear and responsibility, scrambled to control the narrative. But there was no stopping what had already begun. Truth, once released, moves faster than silence can contain it. Behind closed doors, the Queen's inner circle gathered to decide the next move. Should the results be acknowledged publicly, or should they disappear quietly into a locked file, never to be mentioned again? Advisors warned that any attempt to cover this up would eventually collapse under public pressure. The truth had scientific proof behind it now, undeniable, traceable, and dangerously close to being fully leaked. As hours passed, Prince Andrew became increasingly isolated. Friends described him as withdrawn, pacing endlessly, muttering that there must have been some kind of mistake. Yet even he seemed to understand deep down that the truth couldn't be moved. You cannot negotiate with DNA. You cannot appeal to heritage, title, or privilege when faced with the cold mathematics of ancestry. Late that night, the Queen was finally briefed. The document was placed before her on a silver tray. She read it slowly, her expression impossible to read. When she finished, she simply placed the paper down and whispered, "Then we must do what is right." Outside, the palace lights glowed softly against the London fog. Inside, history had shifted once more. A secret buried for decades was no longer a whisper or a scandal. It was a fact. And from that moment forward, there would be no turning back. The world demands answers. When the news finally broke wide open, it spread like wildfire across every continent. Within hours, every television network, newspaper, and online platform had only one story dominating the conversation: the confirmed DNA revelation linking Prince Andrew to a woman whose name had been hidden for decades. Buckingham Palace had not yet released a statement, but it didn't matter. The silence itself became deafening. Outside the palace gates, chaos erupted. Reporters from across the globe stood packed together beneath the gray London sky, microphones raised toward the grand entrance, as if someone might emerge at any second. Helicopters circled overhead. The constant flashing of camera lights turned the palace facade into a flickering wall of anticipation and disbelief. Even the royal guards, trained to remain expressionless, seemed tense under the weight of global attention. Every major network interrupted regular programming for breaking news coverage. Talk show hosts dissected every word of the leaked information. Old footage of Prince Andrew's naval years was replayed endlessly. Grainy photographs from his travels resurfaced, showing him alongside unidentified women whose faces were now being examined frame by frame. On social media, millions of posts flooded in within hours. Some expressed outrage, others sympathy, but all were captivated by the same burning question: how could a secret this massive remain hidden for so long? Royal correspondents scrambled for statements, but the palace remained locked down. Press officers refused calls. Official emails returned automated responses. That silence only fueled the frenzy. Without clarity, speculation became accepted as fact. Online forums exploded with conspiracy theories, claims of decades-old cover-ups, silenced witnesses, and secret agreements. Others insisted the Queen had known all along and chose to protect the institution rather than the truth. Inside newsrooms, editors wrestled with ethics while chasing ratings. Every paper wanted the first exclusive interview, the definitive proof. Reporters began tracing the daughter's life story, digging through school records, tracking down old neighbors, searching for forgotten interviews. Within 24 hours, her name was everywhere. She had gone from complete obscurity to the center of a global storm. Even politicians began weighing in. Some argued the monarchy needed to modernize and face accountability. Others defended the family's right to privacy. Opinion polls showed the divide clearly. For the first time in years, public trust in the monarchy had dropped sharply. The institution that once seemed untouchable was now trembling under intense scrutiny. In coffee shops, living rooms, and pubs across the nation, the same conversation echoed endlessly. If they hid this, what else have they hidden? Generations who grew up revering the crown now questioned the very foundation of its authority. The revelation wasn't just about a child or a test result. It was about the fragile relationship between tradition and truth in a world that no longer accepts silence. As night fell, the palace lights glimmered faintly behind drawn curtains. Reporters remained outside, refusing to leave their posts. Somewhere within those walls, advisors argued and phones rang unanswered. The world was waiting for a statement, for an explanation, for anything that might restore the dignity that had been lost. But the palace gave nothing. For the first time in living memory, the royal family's silence felt like surrender. The story was no longer theirs to control. The truth, once hidden behind gold-plated gates, now belonged to the people, and they demanded to know everything. The statement that changed everything. For nearly a week, the entire world had waited. Every hour brought fresh headlines, new theories, and questions the palace refused to answer. But when the clock struck noon on a gray Thursday, everything shifted. News outlets across the globe interrupted broadcasts as an official notice appeared on the Buckingham Palace gates. Emergency press briefing at 3 o'clock. The message was brief, but its meaning was unmistakable. The silence had finally broken. By the time reporters gathered in the palace's media hall, tension filled every corner of the room.
Comes to the world's media covering one of the biggest stories of our generation.
Cameras lined the walls. Microphones pointed toward a single podium draped with the royal crest. The hum of whispered conversations grew louder as journalists from every major outlet fought for space. Some believed the palace would deny everything. Others expected an apology. But no one knew exactly what would be said, only that whatever came next would echo through history. Outside, thousands gathered near the gates. Tourists stood beside protesters, royal supporters mixed with skeptics. Screens were set up across London to stream the event live. Even people at home stopped everything they were doing, drawn to the unfolding moment. This wasn't just a statement. It was the monarchy facing the modern world in real time. At exactly 3 o'clock, the doors opened and a senior spokesperson stepped forward. Dressed in dark gray, expression solemn, she adjusted the microphone. The room fell into absolute silence. Every camera lens zoomed in. Her voice trembled slightly as she began. After thorough review and consultation with independent experts, the royal household confirms that recent DNA findings are accurate. These results establish a biological connection between His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and the individual previously identified in recent reports. A wave of stunned silence swept through the crowd. She continued, reading each word carefully. The Duke acknowledges the findings and expresses profound regret that this matter remained unresolved for so long. The royal family recognizes the pain caused by years of speculation and silence and extends support to the individual affected. No dramatic pauses, no embellishment, just calm precision, with the weight of each sentence pressing against the still air. The monarchy remains committed to transparency, integrity, and the values of service that define its legacy, she said. We ask that all parties be granted privacy as the family seeks to address this matter with dignity. And then, almost as suddenly as it began, it was over. She stepped away, leaving the room in stunned silence. For a full minute, no one moved. Then the hall erupted with questions shouted all at once, flashes bursting like lightning. But the spokesperson was already gone. There would be no follow-up, no clarification. The statement was final. Across the world, reactions poured in immediately. Some praised the palace for finally telling the truth after decades of silence, calling it a moment of long overdue honesty. Others accused it of calculated timing, of releasing the statement only when it served their interests. Commentators labeled it the most significant royal admission of the century, a confession that could rewrite history. Outside the palace gates, crowds gathered. Some wept openly, clutching photographs and flowers, while others simply stood frozen in disbelief, struggling to process the magnitude of what they had just heard. Inside the palace, the Queen sat in silence, the television still glowing softly in the background. For the first time in her reign, she had allowed truth to take precedence over preservation. The crown had survived wars, abdications, and scandals. But this was different. It was the moment the monarchy stepped into the modern age, humbled, exposed, yet strangely human. The words were few, but their impact was eternal. The truth was out, and the era of silence was finally over. What began as a whisper in the corridors of Buckingham Palace became the revelation that shook the monarchy to its core. From an unmarked envelope to a DNA test that couldn't be denied, the truth fought its way into the light, and with it came a reckoning the royal family could no longer avoid. Prince Andrew's secret, hidden for decades, was finally exposed not by tabloids or rumors, but by science itself. And when the palace released that final statement, the world watched as history was rewritten in real time. This story reminds us that no matter how powerful the institution, no matter how thick the walls, truth always finds a way. If this story left you speechless, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories that the world needs to hear. Stay tuned, because when it comes to royalty, the secrets never truly end.